So my name is Donna Kruse, and I'm a regional manager for teleproviders, and we are a carrier and cloud services broker, and I'm based here in San Diego.
Hi, I'm Joe Peterson. I'm the Director of Converged Cloud and Data for teleproviders. I sit on the Channel Partners Council, and I'm the co-founder of Cloud Girls.
And what we're going to do today is give you some tips and tools when you're vetting a cloud provider for a cloud project. But before we start, my friend Cassie Nelson, who is a strategic account manager with Nexus IS, is roaming the room with a bowl. It's not chips and dip or guacamole. It's the chance to win an iPad mini at the end of our presentation. So please put your business card in the bowl if you'd be so kind. So here's what we're going to do today. First of all, we're going to chat with you about some common concerns that we've seen in working with our clients on cloud computing projects. We're going to talk about the different cloud models and common uses of the cloud. We'll give you some tips and tools for vetting a cloud provider across 4 key areas, those being performance, security, support, and the offer or pricing. We're going to help you see past the cloud and think about some other things that you'll want to integrate into your decision process. And we'll talk a little bit about sourcing models. And if there's time at the end, we're happy for Q&A. So just to level set with you in terms of what you're going to get out of our time together today, when you leave this session, you'll have added some areas of consideration that you'll want to integrate into your cloud decision process, and you'll have some tools that you can use immediately to more effectively evaluate cloud providers. And also, just importantly, what we won't be doing, we're not going to tell you what applications you should move to the cloud. We're not going to tell you how to migrate the applications to the cloud. That's a whole nother session. And we're not going to get into detail about any one specific cloud scenario. So you might be wondering how we've come across all of these tips and tools and where we know what might trip a company up when they're looking at a cloud project. Well, in working with 24 plus providers that are in our brokerage on 28 distinct client engagements and helping our customers source over $5 million in cloud projects so far in 2012, we've learned a few things that we hope will be helpful for you. So tell me if any of these sound familiar. You might be having any of these concerns. These are the concerns that our customers have expressed. So first of all, you might be struggling to sort out the many choices you have in terms of cloud providers. I believe it was Forrester that called cloud the .com of the new millennium. And those of you who were around for the last .com know what that means, right? The landscape explodes with a number of providers, some with very interesting services and business models. And then it contracts, right? So how do you sort out through the choices, and how do you know who's kind of here for the long haul? First of all, do you feel like you can't, or second of all, do you feel like you can't keep up with the shifting landscape? So maybe you've started on a cloud project and you looked at some providers and you said, oh, this guy's not very strong in this area, we're going to eliminate them, only to have them come back around and say, oh, hey, that's on our roadmap, hey, Q1 of 2013 will have that capability. So how do you know who's really committed to the capabilities that you need to support your business, again, for the long haul? Number 3, maybe you've seen an extreme variance in price or capabilities, and I have a recent example. So I was helping a client source a specific cloud service. We sent the same specifications out to the 3 companies that were bidding on the solution, and we got 3 pricing responses back, ranging from $15,000 a month to $50,000 plus a month. So same specifications went out to all 3 providers. What was the difference? So we know one of 3 things is happening, right? Either they're out of touch with the market in terms of their pricing for this particular service, which is possible, right? Because it's changing constantly. They could be not interested in providing this service at the level that my customer needs it, and so they've set a price point where it doesn't make sense for clients to buy this service from them because they actually want to discourage it. Or number 3, and probably most likely, they read something into the specifications that nobody else read into it, and they're providing something additional. Like they're saying, oh, for this sort of, for this amount of data, for this level of RAID, we actually provide double, right? So they might be actually duplicating what the client's asking for. And then, you know, just at the end of the day, are you concerned that you don't know what you don't know? So throughout our slides, you'll see some quiz questions just to make sure you're all awake. Let me know if you recognize the movie this image comes from. Anybody? Give that man a prize. You're right, it's Wizard of Oz, right? Here's our man behind the curtain. And what we want to encourage you to do is to pay attention to the man behind the curtain. And we'll give you some tips and tools to make sure that you know how to have a conversation with these different providers. So it's funny, I was just kind of sifting through my mail. There's so much buzz around cloud, right? Everybody's talking about it. So San Diego Union Tribune, Monday of this week, here's a local firm by the name of Smart Draw and an article about how they're taking their entire business model from an appliance-based model to the cloud, right? Then here comes Information Week, and they're talking all about the cloud, how SAP is going to take on Oracle and Salesforce, right? And on the flip side, how Amazon is going to sell customers on long-term use. So, and then moments later, the San Diego Business Journal arrives. Biotechs look into clouds for high-powered computing services, right? So you can't go anywhere without tripping over the cloud. And you might be thinking, well, with all this buzz around cloud, I need to take some of my business to the cloud, just to stay relevant. And while it's a great buzzword, we encourage you to make sure that you start with the end in mind and understand how the cloud is going to enable your business objectives. So, first of all, think about what you're trying to accomplish from a business perspective. For example, maybe the chief marketing officer has come to you and they've said, we're kicking off a big initiative. We have no idea what the response is going to be. But typically when we do this, our requirements scale by over 300%. Or the last time we did it, they scaled by 800%, right? So how are you going to prepare for that? Well, so there you have a business need that you need to meet, but do you want to build an architecture where it's 4x the size that it needs to be on most other days of the week? So then understand how the cloud would enable that objective. So the cloud could be a perfect model to help you create an elastic environment where you could burst up in your capacity and then burst down. Think of like a floral, online floral business on Mother's Day, right? Or a weight loss company on January 1st, or a tax business on April 15th, right? The cloud could be an ideal environment for those companies to handle those changing capacity needs. Third of all, you're going to want to understand how mission critical the application that you're taking to the cloud is. And we'll talk a little bit more about common cloud applications and kind of where they fit across the stack. But obviously, the more mission critical it is, the more that you need to dig. And those are the factors that would drive your cloud buying decision, I think, is mission criticality is really important in terms of deciding who you're going to partner with. There's 3 common models for cloud services. Everybody in the room is probably familiar with these acronyms: infrastructure as a service, software as a service, and platform as a service. And for the purposes of our talk today, we're focused on the infrastructure as a service model. There's probably as many definitions of cloud and infrastructure as a service as there are providers. So we're just going with Gartner's definition of infrastructure as a service as the provision of on-demand compute resources coupled with associated storage and data center networking capabilities. Within the infrastructure as a service stack, there's a number of different models for infrastructure as a service. So you could have a public cloud. For that, think, Amazon Web Services, right? It's kind of a classic public cloud model. You could have a private cloud that's constructed for you and you're the only tenant. You could have a community cloud, which is a cloud that's shared by multiple organizations, but with the need to access the same data. So you might think of law enforcement, somebody that has a need to see a database like CODIS, for example. And I was also thinking that healthcare information could someday be a community cloud, right, where there's multiple organizations, but maybe a single database that they could all access. And then the fourth and by far the most common model that we see when we're working with our clients is the hybrid cloud, and that's 2 or more of these clouds put together. So these are some of the 20-plus infrastructure as a service providers that we most commonly are sourcing with. And what I want to point out here is you'll see Gartner Magic Quadrant companies like Terramark, Rackspace, and Savvis. And then you'll see companies like our host today, Scale Matrix, Reddit, another San Diego data center company. And what the point I'm trying to make is any one of the companies on this slide could be your perfect cloud provider. It just depends on what you need. Nobody's the right fit for everybody. Here's what we see moving to infrastructure as a service. I had 6 points up here, and then for obvious reasons added the 7th. So the first is cloud native applications. If I go back to that Smart Draw article, that would qualify as a cloud native application, right? They're writing their application to just live in the cloud. It's always been there, and it's always going to be there. E-business hosting is another thing that we see moving to the cloud. And that's really the example I was talking about earlier, where there's an e-commerce website, it's internet-facing, they maybe need a lot of burst capacity. That would be an e-business hosting application. General business applications are the ones that you would probably see in the data center of most companies today. Think about things like the company's intranet, or perhaps a SharePoint or collaboration application. And while these applications are important, they're maybe on a medium on the scale in terms of their need for availability, right? The business could live a day or two without them, and maybe they're not revenue effective. Then there's enterprise applications. Those are the ones that are mission critical. They have a need for typically both high scalability and high availability. Test and development, self-explanatory. Batch computing. This is another really hot buzzword in the industry, is big data or analytics. In the same issue of Information Week, there's a big article about how Sears is taking their entire customer information database to Apache, which is fun to say. And what they're planning to do with that, which is to take like a customized approach to marketing to you, right? So that's batch computing. And again, very high capacity, right? Because it's big data and it's analytics, it's crunching tons and tons of information. But again, it might not need to always be highly available. And then the last point that I added on here was disaster recovery. So we work with a lot of clients that are all over the country, up and down the eastern seaboard, as well as a number of our carrier partners. Cool. There's not one of them that's not rethinking their disaster recovery strategy right now, I can tell you that. So now I'm going to turn the mic over to my colleague Joe Peterson to dive a little bit more into 4 decision criteria for cloud.
These are the 4 decision criteria that keep coming up in conversation after conversation with every CIO and VP of IT that we have. We're not here to give you a checklist. What we are here is to provoke thought and kind of at a high level give you a roadmap and some ideas about some things that are buzzing right now. So performance and scalability, security, support, and pricing and controls, and they really do go hand in hand. From key performance considerations, how long has your provider been in the IT outsourcing business? How many of you were around during the .com era? Okay. What we saw then is we saw a lot of expansion and subsequent contraction because there was a lot of money to be made, right? How long has your provider been working in a data center environment? Are they reputable? It's really important to think about that. Is the cloud provider using enterprise-grade hardware today? Well, why that matters is this is about your overall strategy. It's not cloud in a silo. This is about what you want to have happen for your enterprise over the course of the next couple years. And why this matters so much is your provider able to offer you a suite of products that are going to accommodate your needs? Do they have the financial resources to continue to use best-in-class software and hardware tomorrow? Because again, you don't want to go with a guy maybe that got some venture funding and then is going to be out of the business, in a few years. I don't think that's what anybody wants. Business is global, is your provider. Maybe that's important to you, maybe it's not, but it's something to think about. Again, you're thinking into the future. And can the provider support hybrid configuration? Do they have resources to scale? Are they a one-trick pony? I don't know, maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't. So, here's our next quiz question. How many of you guys remember this 70s-rific TV show? Anybody know its name? Anybody? Besides me? Come on. Yeah. Right, perfect. Let's Make a Deal. So as you know, in Let's Make a Deal, there were 3 doors, right? The first door could have a car, the second one could have a donkey behind it. That's what we're kind of talking about here. We have the Monty Hall problem. And as you peel back the onion, with your cloud provider, that's what you're going to see, right? You're going to see what's behind the door. Will they reveal the names of the hardware vendors they utilize, software vendors they utilize? What hypervisor do they use? Not all hypervisors are created equal. A lot of folks use VMware. Some of these guys are built on Xen. Does that matter to you? Maybe. Do you want the ability in a couple years to be able to port your environment somewhere else? Then it will matter. In the Monty Hall paradigm, does the VM behind door number 1 look like the VM behind door number 3? What I mean is, you think it's going to slice out a certain way, please check. Not every one of them does it the same. That's what we're finding as we kind of look across these different providers. Here's an example of somebody who took a whole portion of their environment to the cloud. So it's a leading music producer. They're in LA. They have a presence in 77 countries, and they needed a reliable private cloud. Why did they need that private cloud? Because they found that the digital distribution of content for their library was $1 billion a year, and it was scaling at 20%. Yeah, something like that. So it was scaling quickly, and they, as an executive team, decided that they did not want to build to that demand. They weren't really even sure how to build to that demand at the rate they were scaling. So a couple of the things that they took into consideration was the provider they went to a Gartner leader? What were they built on the back end? And did they have support to handle the business as it grew? So those were the criterion that they used. What was the benefit? Well, they send files, thousands of files every day to third parties like iTunes, Verizon, T-Mobile. It encompasses 40 terabytes of content and 600,000 digital products daily. Enormous, enormous, and that's all in the cloud. This is pretty good, you know, can you get in? Everybody wants their cloud provider to be secure, of course. But what is really security about? It's about acceptable risk. So what is acceptable to you? If you're siloing out and it's just test dev, do you really care if it's secure? Not so much. If it's more than test dev, Donna had alluded to different portions of your environment, and they get more mission critical as they go up the stack. So if you think of it kind of as a stack, what's going to be important to you? Well, can you find your cloud provider? Would you be able to go knock on their door and find them? That's kind of important because it speaks to the data center that they're in. Again, back to the .com era, how many folks remember friends of theirs that ran businesses off a server in their dorm room? Yeah, so, right, this gentleman does. So that's what happens with some of these guys if you don't vet them out. Who are they really, and where do they really have your stuff? Do they maintain a defense in depth solution that meets all your internal security requirements? Do they have a security plan, and can they show it to you? I'm not here to talk to you about what all the security considerations are. Donna and I counted. We have 47 security questions that we walk a client through. Not going to bore you with all that today. Just make sure that what you have and what they have is pertinent and relevant. Is security built into the product offering, or is it something you have to design and bolt onto the solution? Well, surprise, surprise, you don't want that to happen. And does the provider meet the various business and regulatory compliance issues that you have to go through with your organization? Again, if it's test dev, doesn't matter. But if it's something other than that, and you're in a certain vertical, it will matter to you. So, you know, kind of what are the security must-haves? Perception versus reality. You guys aren't going to like this, but let's start at the bottom. The rate of occurrence of a security breach in a data center is so much less than an on-premise environment. How did I get there? Well, Alert Logic is a security as a service provider, and they analyze security event data from 1,500 customers for a whole year, from June of 2010 to July of 2010 to June of 11. They wanted to find out just that. You know, was it more secure on-premise or in a data center? And what they found when they analyzed 2.2 billion events, 62,000 of them verified and classified into 7 incident categories, that The data center was more secure. Why was it more secure? Some thoughts. 24/7 staff, newest best-in-grade software, real attention to detail, detail when it came to patching and whatnot. The data center was a more secure environment. Something to think about. So looping back to your provider and who you choose, if you choose a best-in-breed cloud provider, they're going to have all these things nailed, and they're going to be able to show you how they have them nailed. Quiz question. All right. How many ounces of ketchup in this industrial grade bottle? Anybody? 64. How many? You nailed it. How did you know that? That's awesome. Oh, look at you. All right. How many of you guys have been tempted, whether it's ketchup, toothpaste, I don't know, whatever, to buy something like this at Costco? Why were you tempted to do that? Anybody?
More is better.
Oh, more is better, yes, and it's a good deal, okay? So, cheap cloud is like cheap ketchup. You get what you pay for, guys. You get what you pay for, right? Do you really need cheap cloud? Maybe, maybe not. What's included? You think that you're going to get things included for that nickel, right? Maybe you're not going to get things included for that nickel. Maybe some of the things that aren't included for that nickel are security, like we talked about, right? Maybe some things that aren't included are the OS you want to use. Oh, that's the other OS that's included. Maybe firewall, load balancers, support, those things aren't included for that nickel. So, is that nickel really a good deal? Maybe it is. Maybe, again, if you're using the test dev environment or an I don't care environment, or it's fine. But if, as you move up that stack, like Donna referred to, then what is included is important. Okay, the next thing I'm going to tell you about is, can you look at the spend through the month? I'm going to tell you a real story about a software company here in Southern California. And it's a bad story because it's about lack of control in a cloud environment. A cloud provider, we all know its name, starts with an A, does their billing in the rear. And that means that for 8 weeks you don't see your bill. Well, this global software provider gave everybody credit cards, and all their development guys swiped their credit cards. Anybody have an idea how much they rang up with that A provider in a month? Raise your hand. Take a guess. Anybody? No guesses? Come on. 400. 400 in a month. Real story. Okay? Who has access and who's giving it away? So, does your provider allow you to have an administrator? Some of them are really cool. They let you set dollar limits. And once you blow past that, you can't blow past that. That's pretty important. Who has the right to give away cloud access? Right? Really important. Can you integrate the service into your business? Cloud's getting crafty. Some of these guys now have APIs that will hook into your key business systems. That's important. Maybe it is. What kind of reporting do you get? Is there a dashboard so that you can see that you have about 1 million servers out there? Oh, that's a problem. That's kind of important if you can see that. So, support. Knock, knock. Is anybody home? Back to what Donna said earlier. Start with what you want to end with. Where do you want to end up? This may not be important to you when you start. Or maybe it is. Maybe as you're looking down the path and looking at your overall cloud strategy, you go, wait a second, this works now, but what about when I get more mature and want to put other applications in the cloud? Do I have somebody a local team of experts that I can call in that will help me architect? Right? Do they have engineering support? Do they have customer service support? There are companies out there where you just get an email address. That's their idea of support. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. Is there a phone number to call? Is there a clear and concise escalation path? Do you have a global view of your entire cloud solution? We talked about that before. Is there a single neck to choke? Can you look at trouble tickets in real time? These are all real concerns. Maybe not today, but maybe moving forward. And we just want to pique your interest and make you start thinking about them. I'm going to turn this back over to Donna. She's got a couple closing slides for you.
Thanks, Joe. So besides all the good information that Joe shared, there's a few key areas that are beyond the cloud or outside of the cloud that we think it's important for everyone to integrate when they're sourcing cloud services. So the first thing to do is to understand how the cloud is going to impact your overall data center strategy, because typically it's just going to be a portion of what you're doing for data center. So for example, if you're going to move an application to the cloud, make sure you understand its dependencies and interactions with other applications and how moving it to the cloud is going to affect that in terms of that linkage or maybe response time. Are there any concerns with latencies that certain applications have and where they need to be located? So think about that. The other thing I would encourage you to do is think about your network strategy when you're moving to the cloud. I've been in that meeting where I had a customer who was kicking off a VoIP project and they'd put their whole project plan in place, and then they called me, the carrier, to the table, and I had them erase the whiteboard and start over because they didn't bring me to the table in the first place, and we weren't going to be able to deliver carrier services in 14 days, which was their project plan. So make sure that you're considering how you're going to connect to your cloud solution. And again, as you move up the mission criticality stack, right, make sure that you have a redundant architecture. So plan A might be you're connecting to your cloud or your data center with a point-to-point connection, and it's gigabit Ethernet or it's dark fiber perhaps. But then what's plan B? If you have other locations that need to get to that data, are you going to drop an MPLS node in there off your network? And if so, does your provider offer the option to have that operate at a certain level, but like the cloud, be able to burst or scale if you have to fail over to it? And then third of all, I would say data center operators like Scale Matrix typically have a number of providers lit in their data center, and they offer a blended bandwidth option where they've already created all the redundancy and they've made sure some of the providers go up the 5 freeway and some of them go out the 8 freeway, right? And so they're kind of doing the routing and the redundancy for you, so that might be a good option or a plan C. And then the other thing that it's important to understand is some of the carriers have moved very aggressively into this space. So they've been lighting data centers nationwide or worldwide for the past 2 years. And if you're aligned with that carrier, you're going to have a lot more flexibility for a lot lower cost in terms of the bandwidth options that you're putting into data center or a cloud provider. There's one carrier that's even able to cross-connect to private connections in the AWS cloud. So now you could get a secure private connection into AWS, but you need to know who it is. Whereas other carriers are maybe more on the other side of the bell curve, right? And they're late adopters. They're not moving into the data center space, or they haven't done so yet. And so if you're aligned with one of those carriers, what you're going to find is you're spending more on your data center bandwidth, and maybe you don't have the options for flexibility or elasticity that you're hoping for. So as you're looking at where you want to take your data center or cloud, think about also who you want to align your network strategy with and who's going to be able to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish in the cloud, because now if it's in the cloud, you got to be able to connect to it, right? The third thing you'll want to understand is your current commitments. For example, there might be a great ROI around moving DR to the cloud, for example. But if you have an existing commitment with maybe a traditional DR provider, the one that does the ship hardware, or you declare and then we turn it up for you in our data center, that sort of thing, just understand where you stand with that, because it's really going to kill your TCO if you have to end a contract before it's over, which is an unfortunate discovery that one of my clients made. And the last thing I want to mention is a cyber liability insurance policy. You might not have heard of this before, but what I want to say is with all the movement to the cloud, there's still a big gray area around who's responsible if something happens to your data, right? So a lot of our savvy CFOs and legal teams are asking providers to put this mutual liability policy in place. So it's the customer does it and the provider does it as well, and it's coverage for a data breach. So most insurance companies have these dedicated cyber liability or privacy practices now. So think about this as part of your strategy. I want to talk a little bit about sourcing options when you're looking at a cloud project. I could go back to that logo slide and we could talk about how you might want to call 8 of those guys up and invite them into your business and talk to them about what you're trying to accomplish and have them back in for their technical meeting and have them back in for their proposal meeting and their dog and pony show, and have their 8 proposals on your desk and then try to figure out what the heck they're proposing, who has what, across all those criteria that Joe talked about, right? I mean, how are you going to compare them? I'm tired already just talking about it. But that's one of the ways that you could source cloud services. Another thing you could do is hire a fee-based consultant. Just as the technology arena explodes around cloud, right? The number of people that hang out their shingle and call themselves consultants in this area is also going to explode, and it's already happening. And there's a lot of great, competent people out there. This could be a really good way to go. But 2 things I would say about this. First of all, if you're going to hire a consultant, make sure that they have more than what I would call a single source experience, where maybe they've just worked for one of the Gartner Magic Quadrant companies and now they're calling themselves a consultant. Well, do they know all the niche players and specialty players and even the other Gartner Quadrant players, and who to recommend to you? Are they going to be very sort of aligned with their former employer? And then the other thing to think about with a consultant is what's their point of demarcation? So where do they start, right? And where do they stop? Some consultants will come in and help you just understand your requirements, but they might not really be able to point you in the right direction in terms of who would best fulfill them. Others would be able to point you in the right direction in terms of who would best fulfill them and help you with the evaluation. But then once you make a decision, you're typically on your own in terms of the implementation, the migration, making sure that the vendor does everything that they said they were going to do, that their invoice is correct, and also for help with ongoing service with that vendor. And the third thing you could do would be to utilize the experience or expertise of a cloud services broker. This might be a new term to you, so I want to give you some information from a Gartner article. It was in GigaOM magazine in April of 2012 called Gartner to IT, Get a Grip on Cloud Services or Else. And here's what they said. They said Gartner sees a growing need for what it calls cloud services brokerages, a new breed of middlemen that sit between the corporate users of cloud computing services and the cloud vendors themselves. These brokers would vet and or approve cloud services before they get deployed. So if you think about the 6 areas that we talked about that are moving to the cloud, what you could do is take any one of those 6 areas, take them to a competent cloud services broker like our firm, and they'll interact with the cloud providers on your behalf, make sure that you're getting the same proposal, the same pricing. They'll help you do the digging, ask the 47 security questions, and make sure that you're getting the best fit for your enterprise. Think of it like this. A cloud services broker gets to know you and your business. They find out what you want in your ideal cloud relationship. They have a large variety of eligible candidates from which to choose, who pay the cloud broker or matchmaker in this case to match them. And then the cloud broker matches you with the best candidates and helps you find your ideal cloud relationship. Sort of like Patty Stanger on The Millionaire Matchmaker. So in summary, when vetting a cloud provider, some things you'll want to do. First, understand how the cloud solution supports your business objectives. Second, explore the following areas to make sure you know what you're getting, and those are performance, security, support, and pricing. Third, don't forget about connectivity. Make sure you understand your existing commitments and consider adding cyber liability coverage to your requirements. And last of all, consider engaging a cloud services broker to join your team. If you want help with your next cloud project, you can email me, Donna Kruse, donna@teleproviders.com, or Joe at teleproviders.com. We'd be happy to have a brief discovery call to see what you're trying to accomplish and see if we would be a fit.